Training video by Carl R. Torsbitz, former Deputy Warden and Trainer, New Mexico and Arizona Corrections Department. A Correctional Supervisor's Challenge: How to Handle a Letter Reprimand for Absenteeism or Performance Deficiencies. In preparing the letter, it sounds simple enough, but it takes a little bit of skill to write a sound letter reprimand that will allow the employee a second chance to become productive and proficient again. The letter should be written in an amicable, professional tone that is associated with helping the employee, and should not be written in harsh, subjective, or critical manner as it lists those concerns warranted. Remember, this is a team effort. This is part of your team member that you need to work with to get them back on track. Whether this letter leads to termination, a demotion, or a reduction in job responsibilities, the contents of this letter could provide those steps if written appropriately. Keyword is if written appropriately. Approach determines response. The first step in addressing the reprimand appropriately without judgment or being subjective in demeanor. Keep in mind the purpose of the art in reprimanding employees or subordinates. Don't let this letter become an obstacle in future successes or opportunities to learn from their mistakes. Thus, provide an atmosphere that is, cordial and professional, and not hostile. How you respond determines the successfulness of such a task, and if the approach is positive, your letter of reprimand should send the employee a message that encourages positive feelings rather than negative feelings. However, putting the employee on notice, there are appropriate tools available to resurrect their effectiveness, their dependability, and their performance while hired to do the job. Gather all your notes, your supporting documentation, put them in chronological order. Note the dates of each incident documented, and try to identify a pattern of behavior, or in this case, misbehavior. Review all documents that the employee has provided responses to these previous incidents and projected inference that tells you if the employee has internal problems or external problems coming to work or doing their job. Very important, these two words, internal and external problems. Look for a blaming others pattern, or a sign where the employee is asking for more training in a particular task or assignment, noted or documented. Examine your notes for previous comments made by the employee, making promises to correct but failing to do so in a constructive manner. It's always important to look back at the past history in order to get an idea for future behavior or current behavior. Find notes from previous supervisors and compare behavior patterns for information that will determine the level of frequency or of incompetence. Review the notes for confirmation that the employee has received any prior informal or verbal instructions, directions, or reprimands regarding the subject at hand, whether absenteeism or lack of performance standards. Remember, there's a gap when you change supervisors. You need to be aware of that. Write a summary statement of your introduction to your meeting with the employee and cite the facts as they are documented and leave out any personal biases, judgments, or subjective comments that may indicate unfairness or prejudiced thinking on your part. Remember that this letter will be part of personnel file that must conform to the format directed by either policies or human resource guidance. It's very important. When you write the letter, be brief, be concise, and to the point. Reprimand the employee in the very first paragraph of the letter. Inform him or her this letter serves as formal or informal according to your own policies for the purpose, for example, absenteeism, neglecting duties, poor performance standards, etc., etc. Thus, in the first paragraph of your letter, be concise. Always include statements that indicates this corrective action, and any future or further corrective action may lead to more serious disciplinary action, including up to termination from the job if the situation at hand continues. Always allow them the opportunity to understand there are consequences. Detail the reasons for the letter, or reasons, in the second paragraph, attached to show supportive documentation that is discussed or revealed at the time of the meeting. Show and explain every source cited and give a narrative of your own conclusion. Every item cited as support data and proof of the deficiency or misconduct at hand. Be fair. Be professional. Sources can be timesheets, personal evaluations, desk scores, surveys, reports, and interviews of coworkers or other supervisors. Remember, shift work or different geographical locations, it can change. Explain consequences for these deficiencies or misconduct and how they impact the workplace, the team, and the overall operation of the environment. Supportive data is very important to your letter. Explain how these factors cause lack of confidence by supervisors, co-workers, and loss of safety, profits, production, as well as compliance with legal standards or applicable laws within your work environment. It's very important that you explain the impacts, which puts a level of seriousness to it. Close the letter by explaining what the employee must do in order to get back on track, to continue working without further disciplinary action, and include probationary period to allow adjustments to be made within specific time frames or time periods. Make sure the time period is long enough to make a good, accurate evaluation or performance by different sources and instruments. Don't just rely on one source. Be fair. Get the whole story. Be empathetic. If the case requires supportive documentation to address absenteeism, indicate a doctor's note for absences will be required for illnesses that takes you away from the job. If it's a case of performance issues or need for remedial training, indicate a training module will be provided to assist with building skills, techniques, and assessments or tests will be given to indicate proficiency or learning skills. Very important you work with them. Last but not least, indicate your letter consequence of failing to abide by these conditions outlined in your letter, as well as human resource policies related to the subject. Include failure to abide may lead to more disciplinary action, up to including termination. They've got to know that you're trying to work with them. Indicate a need for counseling and site assistance programs available within the system and outside through the appropriate healthcare providers. Now we're getting into the internal-external problem area. Remember that sometimes the reasons are given for these reoccurring problems are personal or linked to family problems. Show your willingness to help. Take that first step in resolving what has already been documented and change this person's accountability. List and insist that the employee follow a corrective plan. Make sure they get back on track within those parameters and acceptable procedures listed in policies in the workplace. Thank you for your time.